So how are you guys? We have Javier with us today. I'm gonna let him introduce himself. Javier, tell us a bit about you.
Sure. My name is Javier Estevez. I'm the operating partner at the Charter Law Group, LLC, where we go by Charter Law, but we are a franchisor and franchisee-focused law firm. We do a little bit of leasing and real estate as well, but our main focus is in the franchising space.
Awesome. And when you say that you're a franchise lawyer mainly, I know that you do a few other things. What does that mean? What exactly does franchise lawyers do?
So franchise lawyers do a lot of things. We're one part legal, one part business consulting. But the main thing, depending on whether you are a business owner or a business purchaser, we will represent you in different ways. So if you own a business and want to become a franchisor, what we will do is the part of my job where I come in is setting you up legally, document-wise, giving you legal advice on how to, make sure you're compliant with different states. And I think we'll probably get into that a little bit later, but, each state has different rules. So we have to make sure that you're compliant in all the states that you want to sell in. And then on the flip side, when you are buying a business, our job is really to make sure that, you're getting what you think you're getting.
Okay.
And we help you to make sure there's nothing hidden in the contracts that may be a surprise for you later on down the road when you're already committed.
Because I know there's a few documents that people have to read. What's the moment that you think that will be good for someone to start dealing with a lawyer?
I would say you should start dealing with a lawyer as soon as you get the FDD. You should have you receive the FDD from a company or from a franchise system. You should then look into finding a lawyer who can help you.
Okay. And now that you brought the FDD, can you explain to our listeners what exactly is an FDD?
Of course. So it's a franchise disclosure document. There's officially 23 items, but there's a lot of attachments that go to it. It ends up being somewhere in the 120, 130 to about, I think McDonald's is like 600 pages.
Oh, wow.
By the time it's all said and done. Yeah. And so, it covers everything from who owns the business, how much money it's going to cost you to buy into the business, if there's any restrictions on what you have to buy, where you have to buy it from, how much involvement you need to have, how much money you could potentially make from the business. And so it's a relatively comprehensive document that helps you to understand the business that you're buying. It is important to note, though, that it doesn't tell you everything about the business. And there are certain things that can strategically potentially be omitted if you don't ask the right questions. But generally speaking, most businesses do a really good job of just kind of laying out what their business is without giving away any trade secrets so that you know what you're buying.
Okay, so it's basically a summary of the business without getting into the nitty-gritty aspects of it that you're gonna get once you pay the franchisor.
Right. That's the easiest way to sum it up. Yeah.
Okay. And let me ask you, because you start talking about people are writing these things. There's a difference between FDD and the agreement to purchase the franchise. Can you go over a bit of that difference?
Of course. So the agreement to purchase the franchise is a franchise agreement. And so the franchise agreement is the actual contract as to where the FDD, the FDD will include a copy of the franchise agreement. But the FDD is kind of a plain non-legal way of explaining to you the legal phrasing in the franchise agreement.
And something that you said that was really interesting to me is that the people tell you the potential that you have to make what type of money you're going to make. How is that because somebody reading this FDD that will say, "Oh, I'm gonna." It says that it's 150,000 I'm gonna make. This is an example. Um, how is that? Or how close to the reality is that according to your experience?
I would say, according to my experience, it kind of depends on um, what the uh, what the actual disclosure says, and then also I think you have a pretty good idea based on the size
Mhm.
of the franchise. So, a franchise with 100 units that's telling you, well, here's our average. You have a pretty good idea,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That of what your unit's probably going to do. But if you have a new franchise that only has a couple units or less in some cases, well, there's probably going to be a little bit more of a variance here and there because we don't see necessarily um, how it's going to perform when
yeah.
the person who started it, who put all their love and attention into it, is the one that's not working the business.
And I'm assuming also it depends on the state. If a franchise is in California, for example, and wants to start in
Of course.
Florida, they might give you a like an expectation in California. That doesn't mean that will translate correctly to Florida.
Of
And
course, there's lots of demographic variances and everything as well. So you know, it's one of those questions, and it also, I will say, the type of business also matters.
mm,
A service-based business versus a retail business. Some retail businesses, even in, like, let's say we have two franchise systems in Florida, where you put that retail business and the access it has to people will also make a drastic difference as to where, a service business, you have a little more flexibility because they have the flexibility to go out and find people that fit their customer profile. So even the type of business really is going to make a difference in what you're looking at, and whether it's going to be a accurate, those are called financial performance representations.
perfect. And you know that I live in Miami, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that are trying to get into franchise to get some visas and get some residency and stuff like that. Can you just
Yeah.
give us like just a basic thing, like a 1 or 2 minute basic thing about the visas and the requirements and things like that?
Sure. There's a couple different types of visas available for you, as in what's known as investor visas. The main one that I think most people are attracted to is the E2 visa.
Mhm.
The E2 visa is attractive because it's a relatively low threshold financially to get into. There is no set number. It's generally around $100,000 is what people think. But really, it's
The
actually
average.
proportionality. Yeah, yeah, and that's the average, but it's really proportional to your control of the business. So if you come in and make the investment, you're going to say, "I'm coming here to work in this business." Um, the business qualifies, so you can show that you have a location, that you will be renting, you will be hiring people, and that you're coming here to run the business. Um, you will get and initially it is a 2-year visa, and then you renew it, and it's 5 years, endless renewals. But the one lookout that you have to have with the E2 is that, or the one downside I'd say to the E2 is that even though there are endless renewals, there is no direct path to citizenship or to a green card under the E2. So you would have to be able to qualify under a different type of visa. But by and large, if you've already have a family established and everything, it's a good option if you have young kids. There's a couple technicalities I think might be too much for today, but yeah, generally speaking, that's the best option, I think, for most people. The next option is the EB5 visa, which is a kind of like a substantial investment visa. You can directly qualify for a green card, but you're looking at least $1 million investment. I think it's actually just shy of $1 million on the low end, and then on the high end, I think it's, if you're not in a what's known as a targeted economic area, I think the investment is like $1.5 million. So those are great if you have the money to invest in a project. There's a lot of EB5 investment projects out there where you can invest in projects that have been previously approved for EB5 investment, and you essentially just invest that amount of money, and they will help you with the process to get a get your green card and your immigration status. And all you're really doing is investing in like a building. Miami's a really big
Yeah,
hot zone. That
there's a
type
lot
of
of
investment.
now for the people that are trying to franchise their business, you as a lawyer, what will be the steps that you will recommend them to start? Of course, it's going to be very general because it depends on every person, but just like an idea of the steps that you will recommend them to do to be able to get their business franchise.
Of course. So there's a couple different routes to take. I would say the first thing you should do is reach out to a franchise attorney, somebody like myself. What we do in those situations is we will talk to you, ask you certain questions, kind of generally just getting a feel for your system. Is it a system that's easily replicable? Is it something that, do you have, a solid trademark, or is the actual service what you rely on? And there's a lot of other factors as well, but effectively what we're trying to get at is, can somebody else do this and create the exact same product that you can with your directions? And so if you feel like that is possible, and we will have the conversation with you, I'll start asking you questions, and we'll develop kind of a plan for developing the FDD that we discussed earlier. And that's kind of the most important thing for you from a legal standpoint, is getting the FDD. I know in my office, we do a lot of education as we build the FDD, so we kind of build it collaboratively with you. So then what we do is, as we go through each section, we explain to you why it's important and what you need to look out for when you're selling the franchise, in respect to these particular items.
Well, Javier, thank you so much for being with us today. Of course, if people want to talk a bit more with you, they can call me, text me, send a message. But where can we find you? I know that you're fairly active in LinkedIn, but where else can people find you?
Yep, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me at Javier at charterdifference.com. And that's pretty much the easiest way to get a hold of me. I love email, because I'm all over the place, and at least in email, it's in writing and I can come back to it.
The structure,
But,
at least.
it's the easiest. So yeah, any way you want to reach out to me, our website is, again, charterdifference.com, and we have links to contact myself or any of the other attorneys there as well. So those are the best ways to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Javier.
Thank you.